Give your lives to Christ, shake your nyash for God, was all the people of Ajigule could hear every morning. The call had become a makeshift alarm for the early risers. The voice belonged to a madman named Ose. No one knew his real name, as he had always been known as Pastor Alagbara, before losing his sanity. A minute for a quick shout out to these amazing viewers. Thank you for leaving this positive comment. It really makes my day and keeps me going. And to get a chance for a shout out like this, just leave behind a positive comment and I will be sure to give you a shout out in the next video. Now back to the story. In the slums of Ajegule, a young Ose sat on a worn-out mat in a one-room shack. His mother, a church chorister by day and a sex worker by night, was getting ready to leave. "Mama, when will you stop this thing?" 10-year-old Ose asked, his eyes filled with tears. His mother, applying lipstick in the dim light, turned and snapped, "How do you think I can afford this place we stay?" Her voice trembled with frustration. Ose looked around their cramped room, his crying becoming uncontrollable. Despite his mother's nightly sacrifices, they never had enough. He clutched the only Bible in the house, praying fervently to God for her safety each time she left. And he did keep her safe, until one day. His mother had heard some politicians would be spending some time in town, and there was a possibility they would be frequenting the club she attended. As usual, she dolled up and left. Ose waited up for her as usual, praying for her safety, but she didn't return. Days later, her lifeless body was found in a ditch, mutilated and discarded. Ose was left to fend for himself, his cries echoing in the small room. Another ordeal in little Ose's life. Ose never knew his father, so he soon found solace in the local church. The elderly pastor there took him under his wing, offering him food, education, and a sense of purpose. Yet, Ose couldn't ignore the hypocrisy he witnessed. The opulence of the church leaders contrasted sharply with their teachings of humility and charity. When the elderly pastor died, Ose felt abandoned once more. The church doors seemed to close on him as he sat alone in his late mother's apartment. 6 months after her death, the landlord arrived. "Young man," the landlord began sternly, "I believe I've been patient enough. It's either you pay the 50,000 naira or you leave my house." "Sir, please, I have nowhere to go. Have mercy," Ose pleaded, kneeling. But the landlord's decision was final. A week later, Ose found himself on the streets. Driven by bitterness and a thirst for comfort, Ose turned to crime. His charm and intelligence quickly earned him a place among the local gangs, and he soon adopted the alias Alagbara. His rise to prominence was swift. Realizing the potential of the church as a cover for his activities, he established the Under the Lord's Wings ministry. The church started small, but with the help of his gang, it grew rapidly. His congregation was a mix of devout believers and desperate souls seeking refuge. Alagbara's gang members played their parts well, pretending to be healed and spreading tales of his miraculous powers. Behind the scenes, the church was a hub for robberies, kidnapping, and extortion. To amplify his influence, Alagbara sought a powerful shrine where he was granted the ability to perform real miracles at a cost. He had to sacrifice at least one woman every day before midnight. One Sunday morning, the church was packed with people. The choir's harmonious voices filled the air, creating an atmosphere of peace and reverence. Pastor Alagbara stood at the pulpit, his face radiating compassion and love. He preached with fervor, speaking about God's love and the power of faith. "Brothers and sisters, God is here with us today. He knows our struggles, our pains, and our hopes. Trust in Him and He will guide you through the darkest times." The congregation listened intently, many moved to tears by his words. He called for those in need of prayers to come forward, and a long line formed. As he laid his hands on each person, his prayers were heartfelt, bringing comfort and hope to the weary. That night, In a dimly lit room within the church basement, Pastor Alagbara stood before a terrified woman. Her hands were bound and her eyes darted around, seeking an escape. Alagbara's voice was low and menacing, a stark contrast to his public persona. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered, tears streaming down her face. He leaned in closer, his breath hot against her ear. "This is the price of power, my dear. Sacrifices must be made." With a swift motion, he drew a ritual knife, its blades gleaming ominously in the candlelight. Another time, Pastor Alagbara, dressed in his clerical robes, greeting a young woman after a church service. She had come seeking spiritual guidance, and his reputation for miracles had drawn her in. "My child, God has a plan for you," he said, his voice dripping with false warmth. "Come, let's pray together." He led her to his private quarters, his hands gently guiding her. The room was lavishly decorated, a stark contrast to the humble church exterior. As they knelt in prayer, Alagbara's true intentions remained hidden beneath his saintly facade. In the depths of night, Alagbara conducted a secret ceremony in the forest. The moonlight filtered through the trees, casting hair shadows on the ground. His followers, a mix of loyal gang members and bewitched devotees, stood in a circle chanting softly. At the center, a young woman lay unconscious on the altar. Unaware of the fate that awaited her, Alagbara raised his hands, invoking dark spirits. The air grew thick with malevolence as he prepared to perform the unholy rites. During a crusade in a poor community, Alagbara met Inoma, a beautiful young orphan, living on the streets. Moved by her plight, he adopted her, remembering the kindness once shown to him. "Inoma," he said gently, "you now have a home and a father who loves you." For years, life seemed good. Alagbara doted on Inoma, who grew to love him dearly. Every night, after fulfilling the strime's demand, he would check on her, carrying her to bed if she had fallen asleep waiting for him. Life with Inoma brought joy and light to Alagbara's otherwise dark world. They shared many tender moments together, building a bond that softened his heart. One afternoon, they decided to bake cookies in the kitchen. "Dad, are you sure you know how to bake?" Inoma teased, her eyes sparkling with mischief. As they mixed the dough, flour ended up everywhere, on the countertops, the floor, and even on their faces. They laughed uncontrollably, the sound of their joy filling the air. When the cookies were finally ready, they sat together, munching on the warm treats and sharing stories. In the evenings, they often read together. Alagbara would tell Inoma stories from the Bible, his voice soothing and gentle. She would listen intently, her head resting on his shoulder, feeling safe and loved. Soon, Pastor Alagbara and Inoma had new neighbors. When the Collins family moved into the neighborhood, Alagbara and Inoma visited to introduce themselves and their church. Their son Jude, who was Unoma's age, immediately struck up a friendship with her, and the Collins warmed up to Alagbara. The families grew close, often spending time together. Jude and his family attended Alagbara's church, unaware of its dark underbelly. One day, while buying biscuits from a store in front of the church, Jude vanished. Inoma, who saw the storewoman throw a lid on the ground and Jude disappear when he picked it up, was terrified. She ran to her father. "Papa, I saw something strange. Jude, he just disappeared." Alagbara dismissed her fears. "You must be imagining things, Inoma." But Inoma couldn't shake off the feeling. She became determined to uncover the truth. One day, she followed the storewoman into the church's underground den. What she saw chilled her to the bone. Hidden in the corridors was a makeshift prison. Captive, languished in chains, their eyes haunted. Lifeless bodies and stacks of money lay scattered. As she called out to Jude, a firm hand grabbed her. Oga pikin, wetin you dey find for here? It was Chooks, Alagbara's driver. He dragged her to Alagbara. Seeing his daughter, Alagbara's heart sank. The underground world had a rule. No non-initiate could live alive after seeing what went on. Tears streamed down Inoma's eyes. Papa, please, I won't tell anyone. Alagbara was torn. The only way to save her was through initiation, which meant all the male recruits and himself would have to violate her. Otherwise, she would be killed. Desperate, Alagbara rushed to the shrine of power. Please spare my daughter. I will do anything. The shrine keeper offered a grim choice. Either his daughter would die or he would go mad. Without hesitation, Alagbara chose madness. The next day, Pastor Alagbara was found wandering the streets, raving about his crimes. The church secrets were exposed, and the congregation was left in shock. Jude was found safely, unharmed, and returned to his family. As he roamed the streets, the people of Ajikule now saw Alagbara as a madman. His once powerful voice now reduced to incoherent babbling. Yet, in his madness, there was a strange sense of peace. He had saved his daughter, even at the cost of his sanity. Inoma, heartbroken but free, vowed to use her new life to help others. Inspired by the father who had sacrificed everything for her, the Collins family, moved by her plight and determined to give her a better future, adopted her. The people pitied Pastor Alagbara, not for his downfall, but for the tragic love that had led him to lose his mind. They learned that even in the darkest of hearts, there could be a flicker of light. The moral lesson in this story can be taken from how Pastor Alagbara reminds us that every individual carries their own burdens and past traumas that shape their actions. The ultimate power of love and sacrifice lies in our selfless acts. Thanks for listening to this point, guys. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. Please share, subscribe, and check out my other videos. You might find something you like. And as always, see you in my next video. Bye, besties!